Today, we're talking about lithium orotate. Now, you've probably heard of lithium, right? But this over the counter supplement version has a really fascinating story, especially when it comes to things like mood, anxiety, and even sleep. So, when you hear that word lithium, I bet I know what you're thinking. A heavy duty, powerful prescription drug for serious mental health conditions, something that needs really close medical supervision. And you're not wrong. But that's only half the story. The single most important thing to get right off the bat is the huge, and I mean huge, difference in dosage. Prescription lithium, you're looking at doses starting around 300 milligrams. But nutritional lithium, the kind we're talking about today, is supplemented at just 5 to 20 milligrams. They're just in completely different universes. And that brings us to the big question, the whole reason we're doing this explainer. What if a form of lithium, in a dose that's way closer to what we might get from nature, could actually help with everyday issues like anxiety, stress, and getting a good night's sleep, all without the heavy-duty side effects of its pharmaceutical big brother? So to understand this, we've got to kind of shift our perspective. We need to stop thinking about lithium as just a drug and start seeing it for what it also is, a natural element that our bodies actually need in tiny amounts to function at their best. You know, it's pretty wild to think that lithium is literally all around us. It's in our drinking water, it's in foods like tomatoes and mushrooms. We're all consuming a little bit of it every single day. And what's really fascinating is when you look at population studies, communities that just happen to have higher natural levels of lithium in their water consistently show lower rates of suicide and depression. That strongly suggests that even these trace amounts are playing a crucial role in our mental well-being. Okay, so if lithium is this natural mineral we get from food and water, what makes this Orotate version so special? Well, it's all about getting it to the one place it really needs to go, your brain. This all comes down to a key concept called bioavailability. And really all that means is how much of something you take actually gets into your system and does its job. For lithium, the biggest challenge is getting past the super selective security guard for our brain, called the blood-brain barrier. And this is where it gets really clever. Think of the orotic acid part of lithium orotate as like a special delivery truck, or maybe even a VIP pass. It's designed to carry its lithium cargo straight across that blood-brain barrier. And the implication of that is huge. It means you might be able to get the positive effects you want in the brain with a much, much lower dose overall, which could mean less stress on other parts of your body, like your kidneys. Let's look at the actual numbers because this chart really puts it all into perspective. A typical 120 milligram lithium orotate supplement gives you just 5 milligrams of what's called elemental lithium. That's the actual mineral itself. Now compare that to a standard prescription dose of lithium carbonate. That has over 10 times more elemental lithium. This isn't about replacing prescriptions. It's a completely different microdosing approach. All right, so we get the delivery system, but what does it actually do? How can these tiny doses affect something as complicated as anxiety or our sleep cycle? Well, the science points to a few really interesting mechanisms. So, on a deep level, lithium does a few key things. It helps protect our brain cells and makes them more resilient, almost like a fertilizer for your neurons. And this is huge for sleep. It helps regulate the actual clock genes that control our body's 24-hour internal clock, our circadian rhythm. And here's what that looks like in practice when we're talking about sleep. Studies show this really clear pattern. Lithium tends to significantly increase what's called slow-wave sleep. That's the super deep restorative sleep where your body and brain do most of their cleanup and repair. At the same time, it can reduce REM sleep. Now, for some people, especially those with depression who often have way too much REM sleep, this rebalancing effect can be incredibly helpful for feeling more rested. And what's so cool is that the science lines up perfectly with what real people are saying. When you look at surveys, users of lithium orotate supplements consistently report these exact same benefits. They talk about feeling less anxious, being in a better mood, and just not feeling so emotionally reactive to all the little stressors of daily life. Okay, but let's talk about the elephant in the room, safety. Anytime you're talking about something that affects the brain, especially with the reputation of prescription lithium, you have to ask, what are the risks? What do we know about the safety of this low-dose orotate form? And honestly, this statistic is pretty mind-blowing. Even though it's been available over the counter for more than 40 years, there have been 0 reported deaths or serious adverse events linked to lithium orotate in North America. That suggests a really, really good safety profile at these low doses. This one case report really drives the point home. An 18-year-old took 18 tablets at once, a huge overdose. And what happened? They felt a bit of nausea and had minor tremors, and all of it went away on its own within 3 hours. No medical intervention needed. Now, obviously, do not do this, but it just goes to show you that the safety margin seems to be way wider than for its prescription cousin. So, this all leads to a really big, kind of confusing question. If it seems to work for people, and it appears to be incredibly safe, why haven't we all heard more about it? Why isn't every doctor talking about it? I mean, that's the crucial question, right? It doesn't quite add up. The answer, it turns out, has way less to do with the science and way more to do with money and regulations. It's basically caught in what you could call the supplement trap. Here's the bottom line. Lithium is a natural element, like calcium or magnesium. You just can't patent it. And because a big pharmaceutical company can't get a patent, there's absolutely no financial reason for them to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to run the huge FDA trials needed to get it approved as a drug. Without that profit motive, the research funding just isn't there. So it stays in this regulatory gray area, sold simply as a dietary supplement. So if you're curious about this, the way forward is all about being smart and cautious. Number 1, always talk to a doctor or a healthcare provider first, preferably one who gets nutritional medicine. The universal advice is to start low and go slow. You can even get tiny 1 milligram or 5 milligram capsules, so you can really start with a microdose and just see how your body responds. It's all about that careful, personalized approach. In the end, the whole story of lithium orotate kind of pushes us to ask a much bigger question. It lives right at that fuzzy line between pharmacology and nutrition, and it challenges our basic ideas about where the answers for mental wellness should come from. Is the future always going to be a powerful prescription from the medicine cabinet, or could it sometimes be a gentle, essential nutrient that's been right there in our pantries and in the earth all along? It's definitely something to think about.